Welcome to the Dyslexia and Related Disorders Teacher Professional Development for the 2023-2024 school year. The Dyslexia Handbook is located on TEA's Dyslexia and Related Disorders webpage, along with the Appendix A Dyslexia Handbook Frequently Asked Questions. First, we will discuss the definition and characteristics of dyslexia. The state of Texas has laws specific to dyslexia, and it is important to be aware of them, as well as how they impact you in the classroom. The Dyslexia Handbook was updated in 2021 and provides guidance to school districts and charter schools for ensuring compliance with federal and state dyslexia laws. Please locate your copy of the Dyslexia Handbook on the TEA website. Page 1 of the Dyslexia Handbook gives us two definitions for dyslexia. The first reflects what was known about dyslexia in 1985 when the Texas legislature passed a law mandating early identification and intervention for children experiencing reading difficulties. The second statement reflects what was known about dyslexia in 2002 when the International Dyslexia Association adopted this definition. The newer definition is more detailed than the earlier definition and reflects the increase in knowledge gained from dyslexia and reading research. So, what exactly is dyslexia? Dyslexia is a neurobiological difference in how the brain processes language and matches oral language with written language. According to the Yale Center for Dyslexia and Creativity, people with dyslexia have trouble matching the letters they see on the page with the sounds those letters and combinations of letters make. And when they have trouble with that step, all the other steps are harder. A closer examination of the first line in the definition tells us that dyslexia is a specific learning disability, meaning that it refers to the specific skill area of reading and the processes involved. The International Dyslexia Association refers to a cluster of symptoms which result in people having difficulties with specific language skills, particularly in reading. Dyslexia is not a pervasive disorder such as an intellectual disability. It is a neurobiological disorder. Neurobiological means brain-based. The brains of those with dyslexia differ in function from those of typically developing readers. This means that dyslexia will persist across a lifespan. Individuals with dyslexia will always have dyslexia. Initially, readers with dyslexia have trouble analyzing words and transforming letters into sounds because they have underactivated neural pathways in the back of the brain. Even as readers with dyslexia mature, some may remain slow and non-fluent readers. Older children with dyslexia demonstrate an increased activation in the frontal regions of the brain. So by adolescence, they are demonstrating a pattern of overactivation in Broca's area. That is, students with dyslexia are increasingly using these frontal regions for reading as they age. Students will often subvocalize while reading, a process that utilizes Broca's area, which is responsible for articulating spoken sounds, as a means of compensating for reading difficulty. Subvocalization also helps the reader develop an awareness of the sound structure of a word by physically forming it with the lips, tongue, and vocal cords. Although this process allows the person to read, the result is slower and less efficient reading than if the occipitotemporal word identification system were functioning. This pattern of underactivation in the back of the brain provides a neural signature for the phonological difficulties characterizing dyslexia. It is universal, true of persons with dyslexia in all languages and at all ages. Primary characteristics of dyslexia include difficulty reading words in isolation, difficulty with oral reading fluency, difficulty with accurately decoding unfamiliar words, and difficulty with spelling. Teachers may observe the following behaviors in the classroom setting: difficulty recognizing high-frequency words such as and, said, and was, difficulty decoding unfamiliar words, slow, inaccurate, and/or reading without expression, and difficulty connecting speech sounds with appropriate letter or letter patterns for spelling. In addition to the primary characteristics of dyslexia, students with dyslexia may also exhibit difficulties with reading comprehension, reduced vocabulary growth, and may lack background knowledge. While not all students with dyslexia have reading comprehension issues, the effort allocated to decoding at the single word level may have a negative impact on the effort a reader must expend to monitor comprehension. Difficulty with reading words consumes so much of the student's energy and focus while reading that it impacts the student's ability to gain meaning from text. Sally Shaywitz discusses in her book the powerful influence reading has on increasing a student's vocabulary. If the student has difficulties with reading, however, he typically does not find reading a pleasurable experience and may avoid it. The student's exposure to vocabulary may be impacted, as well as his or her ability to learn information from books, which increases background knowledge. Both vocabulary and background knowledge are vital to reading comprehension. There are three main parts of the brain that are involved in reading. First, we match symbols to sounds. Then we put those sounds together to make an identifiable word. And finally, we locate the meaning for that word and use it to make sense of what we're reading. In good readers, all of these processes work together, and the more we read, the more automatic the process of reading becomes. Dyslexia results in less efficient reading because the parts of the brain that would typically help a person recognize familiar words and sound out unfamiliar words aren't activated. Instead, the person over-relies on the part of the brain that processes oral language. While a typical reader will remember what an unfamiliar word looks like and means after reading it a number of times, it may never become familiar to a dyslexic reader. The connection between the sound of the word and the letter pattern and meaning of the word is never made. They have to learn other ways to recognize words or compensate for this difficulty. This is why students with dyslexia often fall through the cracks. Some students learn compensation strategies, such as memorizing enough words to read with some understanding, or find other ways to adapt that allow them to function well enough to get by. In summary, secondary consequences of dyslexia include difficulty with aspects of reading comprehension, difficulty with written language, and limited growth in vocabulary and background knowledge due to reduced reading experiences. There are various risk factors at different grade levels that could signal a student may be at risk for dyslexia. This includes a family history of dyslexia. The risk factors will be persistent over time and interfere with learning, and the behaviors are unexpected for the person's age, educational level, or cognitive ability. Risk factors in preschool include a delay in learning to talk and mispronunciation of words, difficulty rhyming and remembering nursery rhymes and chants, word retrieval problems, difficulty learning letter names and numbers, and an aversion to print. In kindergarten and first grade, risk factors also include difficulty segmenting and manipulating syllables, difficulty matching letters to sounds, difficulty decoding words in isolation, and difficulty spelling words phonetically. In second and third grades, in addition to the previously discussed risk factors, a teacher might notice difficulty recognizing common sight words, fluency problems, a reliance on picture clues and guessing, and difficulty with written expression. Fourth through sixth graders may avoid reading, have a smaller vocabulary, use less complicated words when writing, and rely on listening rather than reading for comprehension. Middle and high school students may display any of the previously discussed risk factors. They may also have difficulty with the volume of reading and written work required, display frustration at the amount of time and energy required to read and write, and have difficulty learning a foreign language. Some students may not be identified with dyslexia until they enter college, where the increasing demands of independent reading and writing may become problematic. Page 60 of the Dyslexia Handbook gives information for the definition for dysgraphia that is reflected in TEC code 38.003. The difficulty of dysgraphia is the result of a deficit in graphomotor function and/or storing and retrieving the orthographic codes. Secondary consequences include problems with spelling and written expression. Characteristics of dysgraphia are seen on this slide. These include variably shaped and poorly formed letters, excessive erasures, poor spacing, letter and number reversals beyond second grade, awkward pencil grip, and slow or illegible handwriting. Secondary consequences may include difficulty with spelling and a low volume of written output. Dysgraphia could be caused by impaired feedback, weaknesses using visual processes to coordinate hand movement and organize the use of space, problems with motor planning and sequencing, and/or difficulty with the storage and retrieval of letter forms. Why is it important to understand dyslexia and related disorders? Dyslexia is the most common learning disability. According to the International Dyslexia Association, about 13 to 14% of the school population nationwide has a handicapping condition that qualifies them for special education. Current studies indicate that 1/2 of all the students who qualify for special education are classified as having a learning disability. About 85% of those students have a primary learning disability in reading and language processing. Nevertheless, many more people, perhaps as many as 15 to 20% of the population as a whole, have some of the symptoms of dyslexia, including slow or inaccurate reading, poor spelling, poor writing, or mixing up similar words. Not all of these will qualify for special education, but they are likely to struggle with many aspects of academic learning and are likely to benefit from systematic, explicit instruction in reading, writing, and language. A study on dyslexia and related disorders published by the American Institutes for Research noted that although there is a range of prevalence of individuals with dyslexia, the general consensus is that approximately 1 in 10 school children have dyslexia. The AIR study also cited the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development, who estimate the rate at approximately 10%. Let's take a look at the Dyslexia Handbook, which was updated in 2021. Child-defined federal requirements now must include dyslexia and the suspicion of dyslexia. All kindergarten and first grade public school students must be screened for dyslexia and related disorders. The following skills must be included on the Universal Dyslexia Screening Instrument used by local education agencies to screen for dyslexia. These include letter sound knowledge, letter naming fluency, and phonological awareness in kindergarten, and word reading accuracy or fluency and phonological awareness in first grade. Early identification of students with dyslexia, along with corresponding early intervention programs for these students, will have significant implications for their future academic success. On this slide, you can see the time frame for the screener and reading diagnostic, along with the PEAMS early reading indicator code submission dates. On this slide, you can see the detailed time frame and requirements for the kindergarten screener and reading and diagnostic, along with the PEAMS early reading indicator code submission dates. Results of the kindergarten reading diagnostic should be reported to parents along with information about the Texas Talking Books program. On this slide, you can see the detailed time frame and requirements for the first grade screener and reading diagnostic, along with the PEAMS early reading indicator submission dates. Results of the first grade reading diagnostic should be reported to parents along with information about the Texas Talking Books program. On this slide, you can see the detailed time frame and requirements for the second grade reading diagnostic, along with the PEAMS early reading indicator code submission dates. Results of the second grade reading diagnostic should be reported to parents along with information about the Texas Talking Books program. On this slide, you can see the detailed information on the 7th grade reading diagnostic updates. The 7th grade reading diagnostic should be given within the first 60 days of the school year to those students who failed the 6th grade reading STAR. Results of the 7th grade reading diagnostic should be reported to parents along with information about the Texas Talking Books program. The Dyslexia Handbook includes procedures for evaluation of students suspected of having dyslexia within the state of Texas. The process for identification of dyslexia or related disorders was streamlined and clarified. Anytime a district suspects that a student has dyslexia or a related disorder, the district must seek parental consent for a full individual initial evaluation under the IDEA federal law. The State Board of Education updated this procedure to align to child find requirements. On June 10th, 2023, Governor Abbott signed into law House Bill 3928. Information regarding this House bill can be located on the TEA Dyslexia and Related Disorders website. House Bill 3928 created TEC 29.0031, stating that dyslexia is an example of and meets the definition of a specific learning disability under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. The State Board of Education has been tasked with updating the Dyslexia Handbook by June 2024 and determining qualifications and training for required multidisciplinary team members. The Dyslexia Handbook includes the procedures for evaluation of students suspected of having dysgraphia within the state of Texas. Anytime a district suspects that a student has dysgraphia, the district must seek parental consent for a full individual initial evaluation under the IDEA federal law. The State Board of Education added spelling as part of the evaluation for suspicion of dysgraphia in 2021. At any time, a parent may request a full individual evaluation for a suspected disability, including dyslexia and related disorders. This request may be in writing, in person, or over the phone. Parents have the right to disagree with outcomes of an evaluation or refusal to conduct an evaluation. TEA has provided parents with a dispute resolution process located on TEA's website. The Dyslexia Handbook includes mandates regarding dyslexia intervention. Students with dyslexia compensate for their language deficit by overactivating their frontal lobe and right hemisphere to associate their senses into meaning. The frontal lobe was not designed for this type of cognitive load. The frontal lobe is the emotional control center and home of the personality. Students with dyslexia do not utilize their left side word form area efficiently. To read a word, individuals with dyslexia take a longer path through the brain. They can get delayed in that slow analytic frontal part of the brain. New research has found that with appropriate instruction, we can begin to form new pathways for our dyslexic readers. That's why appropriate instruction is so important. Dyslexia intervention works by creating and strengthening the reading neuron pathways through repetition and multisensory teaching approaches. Because of neuroplasticity, the brain is able to change the internal structure of its neurons and the number of synapses created so that the student is able to efficiently read. Dyslexia intervention strengthens memory connections through multisensory learning, mnemonics, explicit and repetitive instruction, and through the use of advanced organizers. Dyslexia intervention must be aligned to the Dyslexia Handbook Update 2021, pages 40 through 45. Critical evidence-based components of the intervention must include phonological awareness, sound symbol association, syllabication, orthography, morphology, syntax, reading comprehension, and reading fluency. Delivery of the dyslexia intervention must include multisensory instruction, systematic, cumulative, explicit diagnostic teaching to automaticity, and analytic and synthetic approaches. Dyslexia providers must have a bachelor's degree, be certified in dyslexia therapy, and/or be a certified educator by the State Board of Education. This person does not have to be certified as a special educator to service students who have an IEP. The dyslexia provider should be trained in critical evidence-based components of dyslexia instruction and must be trained in the district's dyslexia program. Classroom teachers play a critical role in the success of dyslexic scholars. Make sure you know your scholars' accommodations and use them. IDA has a great guide called Dyslexia in the Classroom, which you can link here. It gives lots of information on social, emotional needs and classroom accommodations you can use. I hope that you'll take the time to click the link and read it. Instructional accommodations provide students access to the content so that they may participate meaningfully in grade level course instruction. For students with dyslexia, accommodations are critical because of the cognitive load they carry when trying to read text. State assessment accommodations help students participate in state assessments. However, there are some classroom accommodations that are not allowable on state assessments. That does not mean we do not allow the student to utilize those accommodations to access grade level course instruction. The Talking Books program provides free of charge audiobooks for students who may be at risk of or have been identified with dyslexia. This resource is provided through the Texas State Library and Archive Commission. At this time, we do not have a district dyslexia coordinator for Uplift Education. Our Region 10 dyslexia contact is Amy Davenport. And of course, if you have questions, you can reach out to your dyslexia interventionist. Thank you for your time.